Hello, everyone. This is Deborah Jane East for Skywatcher Radio. I am happy today. I have a wonderful guest in store for you, and I have admired Mr. Heseltine for quite a while. Read his online e-zine, and so I want to tell you a little bit about him, and we'll get right down into the show. Gary Heseltine is the founder and editor of UFO Truth Magazine. He was born over in Lincolnshire in the UK, and he served in the RAF police from 1983 to 1989. So this means he's had a lot of experience with investigations and doing reports. So I think that always makes for a great, UFO investigator. And after that, he spent 24 years in a career with the British Transport Police, so he's got a lot of background. Now, the UFO Truth Magazine is an e-zine, which means it's available online for countries all over the world. And UFO Truth dedicates themselves to bringing up the latest UFO news from everywhere, from every continent, gathered by the foremost researchers in the field. And that is what really has impressed me about UFO Truth Magazine, because they have a lot of people in the know about current situations in extraterrestrial contact and what's going on. And another thing that's really great is that in 2010, Gary was awarded the PRG Disclosure Award in Washington, D.C. by Steve Bassett. And in 2012, he was given the Exopolitics Great Britain Award. So he has quite an interesting background. And in 2013, he launched UFO Truth Magazine. So I'm very excited to have you on our show this evening. How are you doing, Gary?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me on your show. What an introduction.
Well, I'm really impressed. I love people who really dedicate themselves to finding the truth. And so I was just very excited when I was doing research, about your magazine and all the things that you've involved with. And I just want to thank you for giving me the time to put you on my show, because you're quite a busy man. You do a lot of lectures, and by the way, I'm very old school, and I love the way you do your lectures. You show the slides and you talk, and that's how I learn, so I think that's really great. I'm a big fan of that. And you've hosted some great conferences, by the way.
Well, 2 so far, and the third one, which will be even bigger and better, is in my hometown, or where I live now, Holmfirth, in West Yorkshire, in September of later this year.
Wow. Well, that's great, because, that's one of the things that I love to do also is go to the conferences, because you get an opportunity to meet some really wonderful people. And when I was looking at all the things that you've accomplished, Gary, one of the things that stood out foremost is you were a witness at the citizens' hearing for disclosure, and it was riveting. I know that you're really in contact with a lot of these people that you've did conferences with, and actually Steve Bassett is one of your writers that submits article and that you publish. You want to just give us a little bit of update on what's going on with since that you were on the citizens hearing, and some updates from Mr. Bassett, because some really exciting stuff is going on right now.
Well, 2 things. The first thing was, yes, I was a witness in April stroke May of 2013 at the citizens hearing, and I would have to say that for me, that's probably the highlight of all my work that I've done in ufology since becoming active in January 2002. It was an incredible event, and even though the mass media stayed away in droves, it was fantastically well done. The witnesses that gave testimony were superb. It was done very much in a court environment, as it should be, with a mock congressional hearing. People were sworn in. It was really well done. And having been a police officer in both in the military and in the civilian police for what was 30 years, I can attest to the fact that that was very, very well done, and much like you would get, say, in an inquest at a death, not full court in terms of judge and jury, but in something like an inquest into a death or mysterious circumstances, it was very, very well done. So very prestigious and honoured to be one of those witnesses. Now, at the moment, Steve Bassett is on with his initiative with the White House, with the mass Twitter campaign and the mass trying to get emails to raise petition and awareness, because what's going on is that effectively all the video testimony that was given at that citizens' hearings, approximately 30 hours of video, has actually been supplied to every single Congress person, and basically he is now actively lobbying at this very moment to try to get awareness to a point where we can get full congressional hearings, where I think that if that ever was achieved, then when we talk about disclosure, then that would probably be the thing that breaks the dam and lets the water flooding through, and we would have a disclosure very quickly. Whether it can achieve that remains to be seen, because having, as I said, been around now actively since 2002, the way the mass media control the subject pretty much worldwide, basically American-led, is they've got a very powerful grip on the power of the media, and I think that's an extremely difficult thing to break down. But I wish Steve Bassett every success. I think he's a brilliant speaker and political motivator for this subject, and I certainly would like to thank him openly, as I have done before, for allowing me to speak on behalf of police officers worldwide at the citizens' hearing. It was a unique event. I mean, if we did achieve a success and had congressional hearings, or alternatively get a mandate for a proper United Nations full debate, then again that would likely be a game changer, because I really don't see how the mass media could avoid an open, proper debate.
Well, I'll have to agree with you, Gary, because, I was very excited about the hearings, and I watched every single minute. I rearranged my whole life so I could be there, to watch all of that stuff, because it was so fascinating. And you did mention about all the people who testified. It was an incredible list of people. And, I was very excited, because I think you're right. America, if we could get America, the government, to submit to admitting, yes, there is extraterrestrial contact and that these things are going on, I think maybe, disclosure would be more worldwide than it is. I know some countries have, basically they say they have opened up all their UFO files and everything, but I still don't believe that all countries have released everything that they have, so it's very exciting that you were involved in this, and I'm sure you must have met a lot of wonderful people there as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I met Paul Hellyer, Robert Salas, Stanton Friedman, Roger Lear, fantastic people. In fact, Stanton Friedman's actually going to be speaking at the conference that I'll be putting on in September, so that's a great honour for me. I have met Stanton before, and he's still a fantastic speaker, a legend in the field.
He really is, and a lot of these people, I think it's great to be able to have the opportunity to hear them, because some of the older researchers, you don't know how long you're going to be able to access, their thoughts, their information, because they have done the work, haven't they?
Oh, well, I consider Stanton Friedman the greatest living ufologist out there worldwide. His record of work in the field, I think from 1970 onwards, is really unparalleled, I think, at the highest level. And he's a nuclear physicist. He's not somebody you can easily knock down as being a crackpot, as the media would like to do. But I've met him several times, and he's a I would have to say, and I hope if he's listening, it's with respect. For a man who is getting on in years, he's sharp as a button, and he is a brilliant speaker and very funny, very sharp, and that's an incredible piece of luck on our part to have such a good orator for this subject.
Well, it's always wonderful to meet these people, in person, because it's different when you meet them in person. I know when I met Nick Pope, it's like he is so nice, so polite, and he has such a really pleasant personality. You just come away with a whole different perspective about them. So it's always great when you're able to meet people like that. But what I would like to ask you, Gary, first is, why do you think that UFO technology and ET visitation is suppressed by all of the major governments of the world?
Well, you've got to understand the history of the subject, and or put it in the context of the history of the subject. And the history of the subject is pretty much down to the United States taking the lead on the subject and deciding very early on, after 1947, that they wanted to play down the subject, work with the media to dumb the subject down, trivialize it, ridicule people, create that climate of fear where people are frightened to come forward for risk of their career or just pure ridicule. That is down to the United States, I'm afraid. It's a great country, but I don't think it comes out of the subject very well at all. In the way it's been handled, because it's took the lead pretty much all around the world. And basically, if you put it into that context, there are many reasons why it's not gone forward. Now, a lot of people would say, well, maybe we just can't handle the truth. And I think that straight after the Second World War, when these things started turning up in numbers, I think there's maybe a very good reason to say that was the right choice to keep it secret. However, I would say that with the collapse of the Soviet Union, that then was the time to really come clean and say, well, actually, we do know that these things exist. So really, from a long time, I think, 1991 onwards, really, there was no excuse for not telling the world that ET exists. Now, because of the way that the media have spun this in the mainstream for all these years, a lot of people out there, probably, 75-80% of the people who go about their daily lives, going to work, looking after the family, just having a normal life, are probably totally oblivious to what's really gone on historically in the subject of UFOs, and they are generally just left with this bemusement when anybody says, well, actually, there is evidence to say that ET exists. I'm often asked by reporters, well, where's the evidence? And I go, well, what about 2,000 military pilots who've gone on record, 3,000 commercial pilots? What about hundreds of radar operators, sonar operators, air traffic controllers, backed up by videotapes of radar tracks, backed up by telemetry data, things like that you could produce in a court of law. But you see, they just don't recognise that as evidence in the mainstream, despite the fact that if they were to get stopped tonight for drink driving, it would be a piece of paper that would be held up in court, having them blown into an intoximeter where it reads the level of blood, alcohol in your blood, and it would be that piece of paper that stands up in court and says, you, Deborah, if it was you, I'm only joking, but Deborah, if it was you, stop tonight, that piece of paper would be held up as a piece of documentary evidence in a court of law that says on such and such a day, Deborah was stopped, she was breathed into this machine, and it gave a reading of this. That's the evidence. That printout, that alcohol in the blood ratio is the thing that gets you convicted. Well, that's no different for us to produce in telemetry data of tracks, radar tracks from a pilot intercept case, of which we have those kind of things. So it's really the level of evidence required to suit mainstream media is far and above what would be needed in actual court of law.
Well, you're exactly right, because a lot of the evidence presented at the citizens' hearing was irrefutable. I mean, well, let's talk about credible witnesses and their evidence. When they have pictures, of UFOs, and they have radar evidence, they have eyewitness testimony, they have physical evidence. Usually that's enough in a court of law to get, some
Absolutely.
conviction. But why isn't it used in ufology? You're exactly right. I mean, people have come forward and have really lost a lot of their reputation and credibility, for trying to do this. And it's really sad. It's sad that, it's up to that.
It's a terrible indictment of the way the media campaign, which really started in 1953 with the Robertson panel, which was put forward by and assembled by the CIA, and it was basically bringing top scientists, and we have to strip the aura of the UFOs, or flying saucers, as was the term then, and we'll work with the media to dumb down this subject and strip it of its aura. And ever since then, so certainly 53 onwards, the subject, the climate changed from what was relative openness up until that point to one where it was ridiculed, debunked at every level. And unfortunately, that pretty much went round America and the Western world. Britain followed suit, as we always do, because of our so-called special relationship with the US. And pretty much Europe is still in the grip of that, along with America. But if you were to go to, say, South America, of which I've been to Brazil, to attend a large conference in December 2012, I couldn't believe it. The attitude there was completely different. There you had a military colonel, actually as one of the speakers from one of the air forces. You had the Brazilian UFO magazine, led by A.J. Javad, fantastic researcher out there. He'd actually got a protocol where they were sitting down around the table with the Brazilian Air Force and senior military, and in liaison with the defense minister. It was all sanctioned, and the Brazilian government are going to, and already have done, started to release some really top level information about the level of knowledge that they have on the subject. But I mean, there were representatives from Uruguay, Argentina, Chile, Peru. Absolutely fantastic testimony. And the attitude there of the military is basically, yeah, we've been studying these things for a long time, and we conclude that they're almost certainly ET. Now, none of that information is ever related in the mainstream media in what I would call the West. In America, Europe, UK, Australia, New Zealand, all those kind of countries, that is just disappears off the radar. But when you see the open acceptance in South America, it's quite revealing.
Well, open acceptance is what is needed, because being a radio show host, I've interviewed a lot of abductees and different personnel involved, with the military, and I know a lot of abductees that have received threats in the past for trying to write books about what they knew or what happened to them. There are a lot of whistleblowers that give out information and have received threats against their life and their reports that they do. So it's really a scary thing to think that for telling the truth, your life could be in danger. So that's really the dark aspect, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do a show, so people wouldn't be afraid to speak.
Well, I think you touch on a very serious point, and certainly there is an element of risk in ufology in the sense of that if whichever country's intelligence services want to kill you, they can, and that's a reality. And they can make it look like an accident and completely without ever getting taken to task in any court of law. Intelligence services from around the world know that, and I think pretty much everybody around the world knows that. The kind of James Bond character really does exist. It might not be as flamboyant, but the special secret services do get involved in those things. And I have no doubt that if somebody wants to kill a witness, they can do it. I think that's not just across ufology. That could be a whistleblower, say, in the petrochemical industry. It could be anything. And military kind of whistleblower. There are a lot of threats out there for people who are brave enough to come forward. People have often said to me, Gary, watch your back. And I say to them, well, I'll try to watch my back, but if they want to take me out, they will do. And there's nothing I can do, but rest assured this, if ever I die, it will not be a suicide. So if I do die, you know that it wasn't a suicide, because I've said it on telly.
Well, that's probably a good thing that you said that, because, I've read about a lot of past whistleblowers or people that have come out openly and said certain things were true, that they happened, and yeah, they disappear, or a freak accident. So that's a good little tip that you gave there. I would like to know, have you ever encountered what they call the men in black, or did you ever encounter somebody that you were suspicious of, that you thought might be investigating you because that you are putting out this e-zine online with all the information about UFOs and everything?
Not as such, but there was one occasion. I was an advanced interviewer of both suspects and witnesses, and that means a degree of psychological training, how to recognise body language, non-verbal communications, that kind of thing. And pretty much after 30 years of policing and doing that, you do develop kind of like a sixth sense if somebody's lying to you. But there was an occasion, I don't know if you're aware of this, but I'm one of the leading researchers into Britain's most famous UFO case, the Rendlesham Forest incident. Literally maybe 18 months ago now, when I started to receive some emails very detailed emails from somebody who claimed to be a radar expert and had been involved in the Rendlesham Forest. And gave a lot of detail. I basically kind of said, okay, then give me all the information. But as soon as I said, well, okay, you've given me lots of information, I've asked you lots of questions, you've come back with lots of information, I need to now verify who you are, he disappeared. So I basically, no, but I don't believe, I believe somebody probably from the intelligence services was probably trying to, in a way, test me, as if I would just publish this story straight out and put it out worldwide without verification. Well, as a detective for many, many years, that's not what I'm going to do. I mean, I will certainly have a confidential source like the media will do, but that confidential source has to be checked out by me, and I have to have implicit truth that they are who they say they are, and they have the knowledge to say what they're going to say. Now, I do that with all my police cases, so they're all checked out by me and bona fide. Now, as soon as I came back and said, look, you told me a lot of very interesting stuff, but I need to check you out, he then stopped emailing me, and I emailed him and he wouldn't. So then I basically started to put it out to one or two top researchers who I won't name in the US, who maybe have links to intelligence services that I didn't, and I said start trying to track this guy out because I suspect that it was maybe the CIA trying to plant information in the hope that I would just put a disinformation story out about Rendlesham Forest. But hopefully I'm too old and too wise to go down that line, and he was caught out at the verification stage, and never heard from him since. But he did appear to have a lot of good information, but you can't use anything. You can't put a story out unless it's verified.
You're exactly right, and I don't think people understand how devious some of the disinformationists are out there. They want you to take false information, and because they know that the media will search it, and they just can't wait to say, well, look, he's a liar because I researched this and it's not true. So you do have to be careful. Do you think that whistleblowers about UFO technology and contact should be persecuted?
What, persecuted or prosecuted?
Well, persecuted in the media, Or
No, of course not. I mean, you'd have to say, I mean, just moving the goalpost slightly. Edward Snowden, who you'll be familiar with,
that's what I was thinking of.
you know, he is not, whilst he has released some information low level on UFOs, and I suspect he has a lot more that he's not come forward with, he has spoken out on a wide variety of things. But what was so compelling for me is that he said he did it not for money. He's effectively had to run away, change his life, can never go back to the States unless he gives himself up, and then he'll be slung into prison forevermore, never get out. Now, basically, he kind of said, he told us about things like PRISM, which was the NSA spying on people who weren't intelligence threats, just doing it en masse. Now, I think that's an actual valuable lesson there, that somebody had the guts who was within that organisation to say, well, that's wrong. This is breaking all our democratic principles. And unfortunately, he wasn't trying to sell it, as far as I'm aware, he wasn't trying to sell state secrets to the Russians or whatever to make money and become a conventional spy. He basically was trying to say, well, what we're doing breaks all. Congress doesn't know about it. The Senate doesn't know about it. Where's the oversight? He was highlighting things that I think need to be highlighted. And, I would have to say that providing it's not for military use to the gain of other countries, if you're doing it genuinely out of compassion and just free will, that you think the public have a right to know, then I don't see how you could be persecuted and prosecuted. But the way the law is now, you will be persecuted and you will be prosecuted. So I do think that there needs to be a proper Whistleblowers Act, providing it is for the right criteria.
I agree, and that's one of the things I noticed when Snowden came out with the UFO information that was put out, that the press just treated him so horrible, calling him traitor and all these different things. And I think I read a little article somewhere that I thought he was a hero because he's not making any money from this, folks. He has changed the rest of his life forever, because when he comes back into the United States, he's in jail.
I would say he's given up his conventional life. He can't ever see his family again. He can't ever return to the United States now. Unless there's some secret money on the table and he always was a spy, which as far as I'm aware is not the case, then what a brave thing that he did to sacrifice essentially his proper life that all of us kind of take for granted for getting the truth out about things that weren't legal that the United States were doing. And in that sense, if that is true, then I would have to say he is a victim of a terrible miscarriage of justice.
Well, yes, I think so too. And one of the things about your magazine is you're dedicated to getting the truth out there. And you have a lot of great people involved with your magazine. Do you want to mention just a few of the names that write articles for UFO Truth Magazine?
Yeah, I mean, there's a regular set of columnists, and I'm trying to get the best English language UFO e-zine in the world, because there's no overhead cost. All of them are giving their time freely. So you've got people like AJ Javard from Brazil, the leading ufologist there. You've got people like Susan Hansen, who is the top researcher from New Zealand. You've got people like Bill Chalker, the top researcher in Australia. You've got top people from the United States. John Venture's just coming on board as a US representative. Peter Robbins has been, up until now, the US representative. You've got people in Europe. There's guest contributions by the like of Steve Bassett, Robert Hastings, who wrote UFOs and Nukes. Colonel Charles Holt wrote an article about Rendlesham. You've got people like Grant Cameron from Canada who've given articles. Robert Salas, the Minuteman missiles from '67, of which he was one of the principal witnesses. These are top people giving their time, and it's the kind of people that I go for are people who I respect and who I believe are trying to tell the truth in the right way. For me, UFO truth means trying to show where there is evidence. So many of the cases that are highlighted in UFO Truth Magazine are pilot cases, because they're my personal favourite. But these come in from around the world. I've got, regularly we have pilot reports from around the world and stories from Brazil, from Denmark, Norway, about things that are going on in the airspace. Now these, I honestly think pilots on their own, if they were scrutinised, the top cases totally defy explanation, but unfortunately the media stay away. So the UFO Truth Magazine is always trying to go from an evidential point of view. There will be some people send in guest article submissions, and if I think that it's a useful article, I'll put it in. But lots of people send me stuff that's out there that there's no evidence to back it up, and they don't go in, because I'm always trying to go from an evidential basis. We've got Mary Rodwell, who's an expert who lives now in Australia. She's one of the top people in the world who's working with abductees, with children that have got many new and enhanced capabilities, and she's going to people all around the world who are researching these. The Russians are researching these special children, and so she's backing it up with evidence, so I will put that in. But it's always on the basis of evidence. And what I would say to any of your readers, if they want to email me at heseltinegary@hotmail.com, I will send them a free copy so they can have a look at it.
Oh, Gary, that is absolutely wonderful, because, when I was reading over your magazine a few days ago, I thought, wow, you have so much information here. I mean, you have UFO pictures, you have articles, you have all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's really unique in its own way because it covers so many things. So that is a great offer.
The feedback that I get is from both researchers and from readers is that it's the best UFO magazine out there. But for me, that has to be translated into higher numbers. And the reason for that is that what makes UFO Truth Magazine a little bit different is a third of all monies that's raised through subscriptions actually is ring-fenced for UFO causes. So that means I'm giving a third away of money straight away, ring-fence, to finance conferences, to pay towards projects. I've made several donations to various UFO projects since the magazine began in June of 2013. Imagine if we had thousands and thousands and thousands of yearly subscribers worldwide, what a pot of money that we would have set aside to start really attacking the media, the mainstream, at their own game. We could start putting full-page ads in newspapers, and where we wouldn't need the article to be pro and rely on a reporter, we'd be able to buy that page and put out what we want. Well, that's the theory.
Well, that's a really genius idea. And when I read that that's what you were doing, I thought, wow, that's a great opportunity for people to invest in something if they want to work towards disclosure and help fund these projects. It can make a world of difference.
People don't I know that time is short, but people don't realise that we can affect change. But to do that, you actually have to put your hand into pocket and actually pay a few pennies, a few cents a week, which may be 40 cents a week. It's so cheap to take a yearly subscription, but that money, if it was turned into 100,000 people worldwide, we would have such a body of money that we could use to actually go on the offensive and start making some headway. We have the ability to change if we can only grasp it. Unfortunately, the downside to the internet is there are millions of armchair experts who just will not do anything to be active.
Well, it's wonderful. I'm so glad that you are doing what you're doing. It certainly seems like your career and everything just made you perfect to be able to do this. Could you tell people how they can find your website and the magazine and everything?
Yeah, the magazine is bi-monthly, every 2 months. It's 96 pages, features the top researchers from around the world. The website is www.ufotruthmagazine.co.uk. And my email address, if anybody wants to email from hearing this show, email me, just my name in reverse, Heseltine Gary, no spaces, hotmail.com, and I will send you a free copy of one of the 10 issues to date so far. Couldn't be easier.
Wow. Well, I want to thank you so much, Gary. It has been such a pleasure speaking to you, and I want all of our listeners to know that I've posted Gary's websites and a link to his magazine and information about Gary on Skywatcher radio page, so you can go there to look up all the links. Thank you so much for being on my show, and we'll have to speak again in the future so we can get an update on what's going on in the UFO world. It's been a pleasure.
Well, anytime you want me on the radio for your show, you just let me know, and I'll always be available.
Oh, thank you, Gary. This is Deborah Jane East for Skywatcher Radio, thanking everyone for tuning in today and hoping you have a great week, and we'll be here again next week with more UFO news. Thank you.